So, what makes us all so different? What makes some people more materialistic and other people more spiritual, more into higher matters type of thing? Some people leaders, some people followers. Is there like a science-based explanation to why we all are so different? And yes, there is. Bioenergetics can basically explain the blueprint of what makes us us and why we are a certain way. And what you need to understand in order to kind of delve into that is what you're seeing here on the screen, which is a chart of 7 different energy centers that we have in our body. And so on the left, there are names that are traditionally used in association with those energy centers. And on the right are kind of the basic, very basic summary of the areas of life that those energy centers are responsible for. Don't worry, we're going to get a lot deeper into this as we go along. But before we do, I want to address the term of chakra or chakra, for the reason is that most people who know the word know it from something associated with possibly astrology or esoterics or some kind of Eastern philosophy. And some people embrace those concepts, but a lot of people feel a little bit leery. It's like, ooh, what kind of witchcraft is that? So, what you guys need to understand is that the word chakra or chakra is simply a word meaning energy center. Energy center is part of creation, just like, like a light bulb is part of human creation. It's a center of electricity that emits light because the electric energy that's supplied to it causes it to emit light. So the energy centers in our body are basically no different. We've been made with those centers of energy that have a certain function, and they fulfill that function just because we are made that way. There's nothing spiritual to a light bulb. It's not possessed, contrary to what people used to think when they first came out. It's the energy, that electric energy in the case of the light bulb, that causes it to do a certain thing. So it's the energy in our body that causes certain energy centers to do a certain thing. And yes, it's real. I mean, it kind of mind boggles me to where the fact that their energy centers in our body gets questioned. I mean, you guys measure it by EKG, hook up electrodes to our body and say, yeah, certain, electrical waves show that about your heart. Measure it by measuring brain waves. It's used in technology to turn the page when you're looking at it. The energy that, comes from our eyes and interacts with the energy of the computer. What do you run out of at the end of the day? Your muscle mass is still the same. So, why can you do 15 push ups in the morning and only 3 in the evening? If nothing in your physiology, nothing in your weight has changed, what did you run out of? So, we use this energy, we interact with it every day, and some people would still insist that it does not exist. So that to me is more voodoo than anything ascribed to the concept of chakras. But a long story short is that the concept of chakras and energy centers kind of stayed in the Eastern Hemisphere, in the Eastern medicine, while the Western medicine focused on strictly the physiology and the mechanical way our body functions. That's why surgery is so much more advanced in the West, because that's what that medicine focused on for the last 100 years, and totally dismissed, forgot the idea of the energy part of it. Well, that's the opposite in the Eastern medicine. Eastern medicine is not as skilled in repairing heart valves during a heart attack on the mechanical part of it, or putting bones together when they're broken, because it focused more on the energy side of our functioning. And I'm going to get into that again. There's nothing esoteric about that. From the medicine standpoint, bioenergetic uses this energy. I mean, Western medicine does it too. When I said it's EEG or EKG, kind of the same concept. So it's not like it's not being used in Western medicine. But the way we know about chakras is by kind of the shiniest, most clickbaitiest, I guess, ideas of when that concept filters into those areas of spirituality. That's when it becomes interesting to a lot of people rather than dry medicine. And that's where we get introduced to the concept. But what I want to assure you guys of is that this is not all there is to chakras. Chakras are simply energy centers, and yes, you can take it way into the left field and focus just on the spirituality of it, or you can stay down to earth and say it's part of creation, just like anything and everything else. In fact, this is what we're going to talk about right now, about why some people tend to kind of fly away into higher matters, and the other people prefer to stay down to earth. That's because there are 7 energy centers, and some are responsible for down to earth things, and some are responsible for higher matters. So let's go ahead and get started with the first one. Which is called the root chakra, or first energy center. And it's like the chart here says, is responsible for your basic trust, which is saying nothing. Think about human development, and that's how we're going to walk through these energy centers. When the baby is first born, in the first 2 weeks, all the baby knows is eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom, right? So these are very basic, very animal-like functions that are no different in that human than it is in an animal. So first 2 weeks, a human is no different than an animal when it comes to what that human is. And so that's your very first energy center that we are born with, that comes first, that is responsible for those basic, very basic things. So as we develop, it still does that function. It is responsible for survival, for telling us what we need in order to survive: food, shelter, warmth. It's also responsible for perception of self, feeling I'm hungry, I'm cold, I need air, whatever. And as we develop more as a human, then it takes on, a little bit broader variety of the same survival needs, such as security, for instance, or perception of reality, of where I'm at and what I'm doing, right? Self-preservation. So this is the energy center that is also responsible for our physiology and therefore health. Um, but Another thing that I want to kind of focus your attention on when we talk about this first energy center in parallel with human development, in parallel with survival, is that this is the center where we start perceiving ourselves only for ourselves. The newborn baby does not realize, I mean, you can't interact, they don't even smile. It's only centered in self. In my needs, nobody or nothing else exists. However, that's when we also develop our basic trust. That baby does not know mom exists, but it already trusts in mom to take care of the baby. This is kind of, counterintuitive almost. You don't know other people are there, but that very basic trust is already incorporated in that energy center. Why is it important? Because if the development is compromised, then this is going to come into play, but I'm not going to get into this very deep right now. However, what I do want to mention that if there is not enough care at that development, then that basic trust does not form correctly. And so when we are adults and we are not able to trust, that's where we take it back is to that very first 2 weeks of development. And what happened there, was the parent drinking and not giving the baby what the baby needed in those first 2 weeks? Or, were they so deep into postpartum depression that the baby felt deprived in some other ways? That's where we find the clues and the answers to why basic trust can be compromised. So the next one is the sacral chakra, or the second energy center. And that's the one that's responsible for what it says here, sexuality and creativity. And you're probably wondering why they would be on the same, and the same as the same place, same time kind of thing. So that's very basic energy that just creates. It does not care whether it creates by giving birth and expressing its creativity in the physical form, or whether it creates a masterpiece of art or some kind of, super intellectual technology. It's just that fact of creating. And so at that level, we start perceiving other people around us as well, besides ourselves. So the baby starts to smile. The baby knows mom is there. Baby starts to realize that there are two different entities. It's not part of mom anymore. There is something out there besides self. However, at that point, we only perceive others for our own purposes. So the baby does not care that mom may need sleep, or mom may have her other needs or her other feelings. Mom is there to serve me. When I am hungry, mom needs to be there. Um, so that's the level of energy at that point. So just like, if a child is separated from other development, let's say, they're abandoned, they're lost in the woods, kind of Mowgli type of setting. But, Mowgli will never be human, because when those kind of things did happen in real life, and children were separated at an early age, they stay animals, so they don't develop. So there could be compromises in our human development at the second level as well, to where that's what happens is that people have hard time going beyond themselves and having that respect that other people may have different feelings and may have their own needs. They're kind of stuck in that it's all about me type of thing. um, so the third one is solar plexus and its wisdom and power. And so, what that does is that's where you take the step of perceiving other people just for your own purposes, to the respect of boundaries, to the respect of other people individuality, and therefore that's the center associated with leadership. um, because in order to be a leader you have to understand how other people function, and what their needs are so that you could feed into them, right? Problem solving is also here. This is also the level of our intellect, interestingly enough. It's that low, it's not in our head really. Gut feeling, right? So that's kind of, you could probably associate or draw a parallel there. And so, as I'm going to start talking about the higher energy centers, you guys are going to notice that it's becoming more and more difficult to describe what they do using our intellect, because what this is what we rely on for the most part in Western civilization. But what's important to understand is that intellect is only 1/16th part of our human perception, and it lays on a third one from the bottom level of our development. So there are definitely things that go above and beyond intellect. In the Western approach, intellect is everything. So that approach therefore becomes very limited. And therefore, this is why there's so many unanswered questions that Western medicine, Western approach alone cannot solve. And the answer is to step beyond and see what else is out there, and those explanations oftentimes come. So this is where bioenergetics steps in and say, hey, let's look a little further. This is where energies come in. So the next one is the heart chakra, which, just as the name suggests, that's where our feelings of love and care um, come in. And as you can see, when you love somebody, sometimes it's to self-destruction, right? You can sacrifice somebody. You can sacrifice yourself for somebody you love. You cannot intellectually explain that. That contradicts survival. That contradicts your immediate interest. However, that's very real, and that's what a lot of us can relate to. Um, so this one is in between, right? There's three above, three below. So this one kind of connects our physical needs and our more elevated spiritual needs. This is where the ability to read people comes in. Like, somebody may come into the room and they're being very nice, very polite, and you're sitting there and says, that person has ulterior motives. They are not what they seem they are. There is something else going on there. And another person would look at you and say, it's all in your mind. What are you talking about? They're being very nice. So that ability comes with the development of that particular energy center. It's also words into emotions. Not emotions into words, not how do I put into words what I'm trying to say. That comes at the next one, at the throat chakra, the self-expression. How do I put what I feel into words and communicate that? This is words into emotions. Sticks and stones will break my bones, words will leave me scarred for life, right? So people who don't have that energy center as developed may feel words will never hurt me, but uh, those of us who are, in whom that energy center is very active and functioning, know how a simple word can make you feel a certain way and very strongly. So the next one, as I mentioned, is the throat chakra, which is responsible for self-expression, self-perception. This is also where we emit energy. So vibes, right? Somebody comes into the room, doesn't say a word, we feel the vibes. So yes, we have that ability to emit energy, and that's very real. This is also the center that is responsible for us expressing our emotion. That's thanks to this particular energy center, we're able to laugh, cry, something that animals don't do, right? So that is definitely a unique energy center that is unique to humans. So as we go further, then we get even more distant from the material and from the intellectual. And this is the third eye, that's insight, that's intuition. That's the connection between our left and right brain. How like something can be logical and totally creative, totally removed from any kind of logic, and totally into that. Again, see, it's hard to take your intellect and break that down because it's at a higher level. If you're there, you know what I'm talking about. If you are not, then it's hard to break it down and bring it down. And finally, the last one is the crown chakra, which is totally spiritual, that is unity with Creator and creation, and that's basically religion. Um, so these different centers are associated, as you've seen, they're different color. There is also a certain frequency associated with them, a certain element. I'm not going to go into that as much. What I want to kind of leave you with is that there's also a note. Do, re, mi, there's certain frequency, that's why they're a note. And so they are associated, each one, with that energy center. So we are literally a song, and a beautiful one, because in some people the bass notes are stronger, in some other people the more higher notes are more pronounced, right? In some people, there's some day, their bass note, and then it'll hit a higher note and come back down there. That's what makes us so unique. And I've mentioned, well, if a child is deprived, this and that. So, yes, those energy centers can be undeveloped. They can also be suppressed because of certain circumstances, or they can be hyperactive and they can get out of balance. So, but that's kind of a separate subject. The way we were made is that they are in harmony and they create a beautiful song as all those notes are hit, some stronger, some, weaker, some barely touched. And that's our unique composition. So if you are a person who is more on the higher notes and they're more accentuated, then you're being to be more creative, and you're being to be drawn more into the intellectual things, into philosophical things, spiritual things, and you're not going to care so much. It's like stores, shoes, sex, who cares? It's more into, the thought and the feeling, right? From here on up. And there's some people who are more grounded. I mean, don't give me this art. I care what kind of food is on my place because this is what I can actually feel. And that's perfectly okay because there's just different notes are stronger in some people and weaker in others. And we all come into one beautiful song. The only place when we start having problems with that is either our melody is out of tune because we have artificially silenced some notes in ourselves. Then we're not being ourselves, and it's basically our body is telling us, hey, you're trying to twist me out of shape here. Or in those other people, some notes are indeed over accentuated again, due to circumstances, due to some things that we go through. That is a subject, or rather subjects of their own that um, um, warrant a lot longer discussion that I have time for here. But what I want you guys to walk away with is remember, we each of us are a beautiful song. And the reason being is that we have those energy centers that, when in harmony, create a very beautiful tune. And it's a unique tune, just like our fingerprints are unique, our energy tunes are also unique. So when we say, oh, we each have a song in our heart, there's a lot more to it than just words. You have your own unique song that your body is singing just by the way of existence. It's very unique and it's very beautiful for each and every one of us. That's the story for today. We'll see you next time with more details.